We did.
We're live, bro.
We are.
And welcome back to another episode of the Investor Shed podcast. I'm your host, Nick Beveridge, here with this beautiful man next to me, Jeremy Kitchen. Good morning.
Well, thank you so much, Nick Beveridge. I appreciate that. And I just want to let everyone know right now that as of yesterday, I achieved the ultimate level of manhood.
Did you have sex with your wife?
Not yet.
Oh, okay. Just kidding.
No, I achieved what every man strives to do with his life, and I bought a snowblower.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's about friggin' time.
Wow. How'd you get it home in that Chevy Aveu?
The Chevy Aveu, that's not that. Home Depot, this is not sponsored by this, but they're offering free delivery on snowblowers.
Oh, good. You don't want to shove that in your car.
No, I don't want to shove it in my car. But I
You actually have a Prius, just to be clear.
I do. But what's funny is, so like I bought the snowblower. It's a tiny snowblower. It is not a manly snowblower. So
Doesn't matter.
Even though I achieved the ultimate level of manhood, all the other dads on the block are going to look at me like I'm scum. They have like the best snowblowers.
Well, you know how you counterbalance that.
How's that?
You do it in your shorts.
Oh, you're right.
You got a snowblower in your shorts with like the knee-high
Oh, yeah,
boots.
yeah, okay.
Knee-high boots and shorts, and you're fine.
I love it.
Then you regain that status. Because then they're not looking at the size of your blower anymore. They're looking at the rest of you.
It's net neutral, right? So you've got a negative and a positive, and it balances itself
You're
out.
like, I'm not sure about the size of that tool, but he is using it.
Yeah, he is doing it. So speaking of like balancing things out, today actually we're going to talk about budget.
Budget,
Yay!
federal budgets. Yeah, probably not going to talk a whole lot about real estate in general today, but it absolutely affects real estate over time here in the country. But I think it'd be interesting to just talk about what's going on in the country, which I think is fascinating. I think there's a lot of people. Some people are catching on, some aren't. But I think it's very important that our country doesn't, become a third world type of nation.
Sure.
And that we don't continue on this deficit that we've been on for quite a while.
A couple years.
Because it turns out when you use a supercomputer to predict what's going to go on if we just continue with the same habits, it's not good. And this supercomputer, I'm talking about AI, but it's interesting to have a conversation with AI because it gives you the facts.
Right.
It may, give it a little sweetheart vibe to it, but it really is, for the most part, giving you non-biased facts. It's slightly like left-leaning, you can tell, ChatGPT, but that doesn't matter. Like, it's still gonna not give you completely false information,
right,
which I really love about it. And you can just simply ask, well, what happens if this happens? Because what it does is it calculates all the math that most people don't think of, and it has everything in mind when you ask it very specific questions about particularly the deficit in the U.S.,
right,
and what kind of changes have to go on for us to remain the number one world-leading superpower.
We want that title, buddy.
Because the only way we can do, this, like the humanitarian efforts around the country, around the world, and, try to prevent wars, is because we do have this massive foothold, and we have military bases all around the world, and we have a lot of dominance out there, and ultimately, it seems like it's going to shrink if we don't get our books in line, which I remember, a few years ago where I was out of control with my spending. I built up a nice big team, bought a lot of real estate, went crazy.
You did.
But all of a sudden I found myself spending more every month than what I was making. And it turns out you can't do that for that long.
No, there becomes
for a while.
Yeah, there becomes a breaking threshold when you overspend. Like, okay, you cannot physically use any more cash, equity, leverage, anything like that. You're done.
Yeah.
You're done. You're 86th.
And it took a while for me to get there because for the most part, most of my business life, I was making more money than I was spending.
Yeah.
And then it got to a point where I was getting so big and bloated and wanted to take on more and more, where before I knew it, I was spending a lot more than what I was making. And I didn't really realize it until you look at the books.
Yeah.
And then once you realize, oh, shoot, I'm spending about $90,000 a month on operating expenses, and I'm bringing in regular income like 30 grand.
Yeah.
Like, shoot, I have a problem here.
It's a big number, right?
And rapidly, it only took a year or two for me to lose, quite a bit because I was making interest payments upon interest payments. And then because I was running a deficit every month, I needed some way to pay my bills. So I was getting into more debt to pay for my annual or my regular expenses.
Right.
And so the problem significantly got bigger over time. And I feel like that's what the country's, I guess I'm not feeling it. We can just see it.
Yeah,
you can see it on paper that
and
our country is going that direction.
And I want to say, like, Nick, we ran these numbers through ChatGPT, of course, but like Nick said the supercomputer knows it. Like, you don't have to have that supercomputer to take a look at like our spending and be like, oh shit, there's a problem.
Yeah. The bottom line is, we are bringing in approximately $5 trillion a year in revenue.
Yeah.
And sorry, did I say 5? It was like slightly under 5 trillion, and we are spending. We are spending approximately, 6.8 or something like that, 6.7.
Yeah.
We're spending approximately $1.83 trillion more every year than what we're bringing in. And rapidly, that is going up because we are spending a lot of it on interest payments because we don't have enough money to pay for everything. We have to keep borrowing, and the more we keep borrowing, the more those interest payments are going up. And now they've, surpassed what we spend on the Defense Department.
Yeah.
Which is kind of wild to think that our number one expense item is interest. I remember that happening to me.
Yeah.
Where that wasn't my number one expense, was interest on, but it became that way because I was spending more. I was spending more than what I was bringing in. And there is some radical reform needed that is not very popular right now.
Yeah, it's not.
People are very angry about it, but I don't think people have a simplistic idea of what's actually happening.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you. And we're going to go into this from obviously like a national view. But if you use the trickle down effect, right? Like, I mean, if you look at every person's personal finance, a lot of people are going through what you went through. Yeah. Right? Just completely over leveraged. They don't know how to get out, so they're reaching for a magic wand, right?
Well, they keep getting into more and more debt to get into the next month.
Right, exactly. And then that starts compounding very quickly, as you've noticed.
Yep.
And it becomes a big problem to get out of.
Yeah, until eventually they need help, or they need budget reform, or they need to just go bankrupt and start over.
Yep.
And our country's no different.
Right. I think as a nation and as a country, like, we spend a lot of money.
And we spend more every year because we don't make enough.
Right. Which spending isn't exactly the problem. I believe, like, spending stimulates the economy.
Sure.
It promotes growth. Like, there are benefits to spending money, but when the problem becomes so big that it's just like, well, we don't know how to get out of this, so I guess we'll just keep leveraging debt and keep, issuing out those treasury bonds.
Yeah. The problem is spending more than what we make.
Yes.
That's it.
That's the baseline problem, 100%.
But I would love to dive into it because there's, who's in the news right now and who's just getting clobbered by the media and just like, they are convincing everybody that this man is the devil.
Abe Lincoln?
Almost. It's a guy that's trying to help, I believe, tried to fix the problem. And I ran it through ChatGPT too to see, does this guy, Elon Musk, I'm talking about Elon Musk here, is Elon Musk really in it for himself? Or is he trying to help solve another humanitarian issue?
Nick has a tattoo of Elon Musk. It says Cult of Elon on his arm. He won't show it. That's why he's wearing a long sleeve shirt today, by the way. No,
no, but I want you guys to realize that ChatGPT is a left-leaning thing that doesn't have favorable views of Elon Musk in general when it's talking about it, but it still is giving me the facts and giving me its opinion of his true intentions. And guess what? ChatGPT, as left-leaning as it is, they do not think doesn't think he's a Nazi.
Yeah.
Thinks quite the opposite, and doesn't think he's just in it for himself, and thinks he's truly just trying to help another humanitarian issue. Right. But ChatGPT does think that he has an extreme ego issue.
ChatGPT's probably right there.
He's the only one that can help, and he's trying to be a superhero.
Yeah.
But I think we need somebody like that because nobody else is helping.
I agree with you 100%. And I think like the issue with Elon, I have a lot of respect for him, first off. Like, I don't think he's perfect. I don't think anyone's perfect in government, to be completely transparent with you. I do not think he's in it for himself. That's my own personal belief. Like, if you look at how much he's donated and look how much he's given away and look how much he's like actually improved our livelihood and our daily lifestyle.
Yeah.
I do not think he's in it for himself. 1,000,000% believe that. Other beliefs, I don't quite know yet, because I don't...
Sure. And let's talk, if you guys don't know really who Elon Musk is, that's okay. This is the guy, so he's got a few companies out there. There's SpaceX, which he built this company purely with the vision to expand humanity to a multi-planetary type of species, where like he wants to build a company that is going to take us to Mars, because when he made his millions on PayPal, he started getting more interested in Mars and was curious when NASA's planning to send humans to Mars.
Is that how he got rich, with PayPal?
Well, he got actually rich with Zip2,
Okay.
and then he reinvested his money. He made like $22 million or something like that, close to that, with Zip2, and that was a company where it was kind of like Google Maps. Like he built one of the first companies that actually put like road directories and like directions and reviews to businesses.
Yeah.
And then it was eventually bought by some other big company.
Cool.
But anyway, so he made like 20 something million on that company, reinvested in it and made X.com, and then eventually partnered with PayPal. Like, who's the other guy, the other famous one?
Richard, I can't remember his name.
I can't remember the guy's name. I'm sure people are screaming it.
Yeah.
Very popular, also billionaire.
Was it Bezos?
No. Anyway, I'm going to pass it.
Yeah.
Anyway, the name changed, but it was the same thing.
Sure.
He wanted more of a broad banking system, and then PayPal had this feature where you can send money through email, and that little feature became wildly popular, and that's what grew the popularity of PayPal, and eventually eBay bought them for, and then he made quite a bit of money on there. I think he made I can't remember. It was a lot, but he sunk all his money into two companies, and it was Tesla and SpaceX.
Okay.
Tesla, some people argue that, he never started that company. He basically started the company. Some guy that was trying to figure out an electric car, built off like a Lotus, came to him for funding, and he did like help him fund this project, but it was not like a car selling company yet.
Sure.
It was just like, and then he eventually took over the design and just like get out of the way. Like, I'm going to take it.
I know what I'm doing. Get out.
Basically, started the company himself.
Sure.
And yeah, a little bit of ego, but like he had a vision. He knew that, hey, if you want to make electric cars actually good, they have to look good.
Yeah.
And you have to spend a lot of time. And, he's an engineer, so he kind of like basically just took over.
They have to look good. What happened with the Cybertruck?
Oh, some people love the Cybertruck.
I actually like it, but a lot of people are like, "What the hell is that thing?" No, but you're right.
It's futuristic.
It's if you're designing any sort of automobile, it has to be classy and it has to be functional. Like function and fashion have to mend into this product, and I think with Tesla in general, he has done a very good job with that.
Yeah, he built a car company in the U.S., which like
doesn't happen very often.
Doesn't happen.
All the other ones that do that
and happen to be an electric car company, and now it's the largest automaker in the world when it comes to the value of the company.
Yeah, and if you think about it too, like all these other companies, you got Ford, General Motors, Chrysler, all these things, they all requested government buyouts. Probably 3 to 4 years ago, 10 years ago at this point.
Oh no, this was like 2008.
Okay, it's kind of been
when
like
all those companies were going bankrupt.
Yeah.
And his was too, but he never got a bailout.
He never got a bailout, but
he just put the rest of his money into it.
Right, he just sunk more money into the thing. So
yeah, all his millions, and I think he made close to $1 billion on the PayPal thing. I could be wrong on that. I forget exactly, but he put all his money into those companies, and also had to borrow from friends and stuff to keep it afloat before eventually they turned around.
Right.
Like the launching rockets was not working out. They kept exploding, and they could not get the manufacturing on Teslas.
Which will happen with any sort of rocket testing.
Yeah.
Like, you can't expect a rocket to not blow up the first few times when you're testing it. That's how these things work. That's what testing's for.
Yeah. But ultimately, the electric car company, he's trying to help with climate change, and knows that we need a more sustainable a more sustainable energy system in the world for us to function long term. You know, he's thinking long term. Long term, electric cars should be the future, and not just gas cars.
Yeah.
So anyway, he made electric cars cool. They're actually at this point now, 2025, it is cheaper to own a Tesla than it is almost any other car.
Do the math.
Yeah. Annually, just to hold on to it for a few years. Like, it is actually cheaper, and I've done the math, to like have a Tesla Model Y than like a Chevy, you know, Aveo or whatever,
right.
a $13,000 car.
Yeah.
For that long, depending on how the payments are made and stuff. But I'm talking about the maintenance and the fuel and all that stuff, holding it long term, the tax incentives you get.
I think it's wild that your car only has one fluid in it, and it's windshield washer fluid.
Yeah, there's brake fluid in there, but I don't have to ever change it because the brakes never really wear and tear because of the regenerative braking.
Right.
But yeah, the only fluids I can pour into the car is windshield wiper fluid. And that's it.
And I'm sure there's like Google Sheets or calculators out there, like how much would an electric car save me over the next few years?
Yeah.
Run that math, people. Like, seriously,
Yeah.
like, I'm not telling you to go out and just buy an electric car, but like the math makes sense if you look at it from a long-term play.
Yeah, and the reason I'm so strong on this is because I had the Tesla Model 3 when it came out in 2018, and before that, I would have a different car like every 6 months, every year, and I've had the same car. I did get hit by a semi.
You did.
About a year and a half ago, and swapped it out for the exact same car.
Yep.
But I've had the same car for 7 years now, and the maintenance and the cost to operate these vehicles is insanely cheap.
It is.
It's basically free.
Right.
It's like you're changing out windshields when you crack them and tires when they go out.
Right.
That's about it.
The only thing I would say that like the charge that like hasn't quite computed, but I'm sure it still does make sense, is when you go to like a speed charger when you're on a road trip or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, I look at that and I'm like, oh, that's a lot of money you're pumping in. But at the same time, if I was driving, I'd be pumping a lot of money into gas anyway, right?
Right, but it is cheaper. Now
cheaper,
take it from somebody who's done many road trips in a Tesla. Like stopping at those superchargers is not free, but it's still like half of what gas would be.
Right, exactly.
If you stop and you get 200 miles of range, it's going to cost you like $10 to $20.
Right.
If you stop with a gas car to get 200 miles of range, I think it's cost more than $10.
Not in my Prius.
Hey, quick commercial break here. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I really do appreciate it. If you want to give back, let me help you buy a house, or I can help you sell a house. It's the only way I make money when I'm not investing in real estate. I don't make money on this podcast or the events I do, but I do make money only when I help people buy and sell houses. So if you're looking for your next investment and you're here in North Idaho, I want to help you personally. If you are not in North Idaho, I can still help you out. I have a vast network of referral partners all across the country, and I can find the right real estate investor savvy agent for you so you don't have to. It doesn't cost you a thing. Thank you for your support. Back to the show.
But yeah.
Right, for most people.
Most cars, correct.
For most people traveling with a family.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, the whole point of this is not to sell you on a Tesla. It's just to say that the guy made a company that's, a product that sells itself. There's no marketing department.
Yeah.
And it became the largest company by just looking at like what's good for humanity long term.
Right.
This is a great product people might love.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really shoved down anybody's throats.
It really
because
wasn't.
There's no marketing campaign or anything like that. People just are insanely obsessed by them.
You don't see like, commercials for Tesla. You don't see any of this stuff. Am I wrong?
No, there's no commercial.
Okay.
They don't have a marketing budget.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, they don't do commercials.
It's not like a Honda Odyssey has 9 different commercials and there's $1 billion in marketing fees for it. Yeah, that makes sense.
And here's another crazy thing: the average margin on these cars, the profitability is close to 20%. So I can't remember the exact amount of money they make. It's like around $11,000 to $15,000 per car. Somewhere in there is how much money they make. You take the average automaker and how much they typically make on a new car, and it's like $1,600.
Yeah.
And that's why Tesla is valued so much higher. And it's not just that their cars are so much more profitable. It's that they also have this infrastructure, around the world to be the dominant player when it comes to traveling around the world.
Yeah, that's true.
Traveling. And they're also making robots And they're also had the leading AI in the cars to drive themselves.
Yeah.
And they have robo taxis coming. They're going to be coming in Austin this summer. So you're going to see driverless cars.
Cool.
This summer.
In Austin, Texas?
Yep.
Cool.
That's where they're going to do the pilot for, trying out the robo taxis.
Yeah.
And then next year, you'll see these cars without steering wheels start to be released, the cyber cabs.
I think that's wild.
So people can make money on their cars.
Yeah.
Just like Uber. Yeah, it's going to probably put Uber out of business.
Sure.
And it's going to piss a lot of people off. But it's going to be cheaper and better for humanity because it's just going to bring the cost of driving around way down.
Sure.
Neuralink, that's another company that he's involved with. This merges humans with AI. And the reason for this is to prevent AIs from surpassing us.
Sure. Okay.
This was his main, because he's very afraid of AI, and that's why he's trying to, and he says it very publicly. Yeah, he thinks that, the Terminator thing could be a real thing.
I wonder if he says,
So he's
please
trying
and
to
thank
get
you to ChatGPT when he uses
bet
it.
Well, I think
hope he
he
does.
knows that it's not conscious, but in the wrong hands,
Yeah.
it could be a very dangerous weapon.
Yeah.
But Neuralink, right now it's helping people that are paralyzed,
Mm-hmm.
that they can actually, function on a computer just with their mind.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
I have not seen it. I actually didn't even know. And before you started talking, I had no idea what Neuralink was. I've heard of Neuralink, but I didn't know it was an actual company that Elon Musk was, that he started.
Yeah, he started. Yeah, so basically implanting chips in people's brains to help them get faster output.
And again, like for a man who's afraid of AI, and this is somebody who doesn't know a ton about him, but like having a chip in a person where it can be overridden by a computer.
Probably.
He's
Trying to get out ahead of it.
Right, but I understand this concept. But like, if you put this kind of shutoff valve in people, like, I don't know, man. It'll be interesting to see what happens with it. That's where I'll keep it.
So we started the Boring Company, which is trying to solve urban congestion, traffic.
It's called the Boring Company.
Yeah, because they bore tunnels under
yeah.
the earth.
I love it.
That one, I don't know if it really is a big. It's just everyone hates traffic, and so does he. So he's trying to solve it by going 3D.
I appreciate that. I hate traffic too.
Yeah, OpenAI and XAI. So he's not associated with OpenAI anymore, that ChatGPT runs off of, but he helped fund it initially with $50 million. And the reason why it's open, it was supposed to be open source for everybody and a nonprofit.
Yeah.
And then, when he turned his back to it and let Sam Altman run it, Sam turned it into a for-profit and closed it. So it's no longer open and it's closed. And now he's working with other companies to make money on this thing. And it was initially funded by Elon Musk. So that's why he hates the guy.
Right.
That's
That
why
makes
he
sense.
publicly,
That checks out.
That's why he sues them and stuff. And now he's got a competitor, XAI and Grok and all that. Starlink, this is global internet access.
Yeah.
And this is helping Ukraine fight the war in Russia because Russia destroyed all of their infrastructure so they couldn't communicate. But this is helping this has helped a lot with anybody just get fast internet access.
Yeah.
Because, just like the RV park I have, we have a Starlink thing out there and it's just fast internet for, it's simple. We don't really have to describe that too much,
right.
but, thanks to Starlink, you could work from home, basically wherever you are. You can be in a cabin in the woods somewhere with no infrastructure out there. You can be completely off grid, but have lightning fast internet.
Yeah.
At a cheap price.
It's
$100 a month. Or
pretty remarkable how well it works too. Like I said, I think I've said it on past episodes, but my mother and father-in-law have it out in the middle of nowhere in Davenport on the lake.
Yeah.
And it works flawlessly. It's like the best internet it's like having internet at home.
Yeah.
Again, we don't need to sell people on that, but just know that that's something that he started. And he's doing it to help people. You understand what he's doing here, right? He's bringing resources to people that need them.
Right. Now, in order to make an omelet, you got to break a few eggs. And he does fire people a lot ruthlessly.
Yeah.
If they're not performing at a hardcore rate, he lets people go regularly and he pisses a lot of people off.
Well,
and that's kind of sad. That's just the way he is.
Hire slow, fire quick. You got to run a company. You got to do it.
I don't think he can get to where he's gotten without having that kind of an attitude,
right?
Or having that kind of intensity.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that have worked for him that have been on interviews that just this is crazy fun time of life, but overly exhausting. Who knows? Everyone has a different opinion about that.
Sure.
But yeah, the guy's a little bit ruthless.
You are right. He is absolutely a little bit ruthless. And when it comes to his hiring and firing, like, I think you have to be that if you demand a certain level of excellence.
Uh-huh.
Right. Like, you can't settle for mediocrity.
Right.
And if your team is not performing the way, you just get rid of them and replace them. It's how it kind of should be in most jobs, to be honest with you.
When he purchased X, 80% of the people left or were fired.
Sayonara.
And the company runs better than ever.
Yeah.
A lot of people will say that. Everybody admits that X is a much better platform now.
Yeah.
As far as its functionality.
Sure.
A lot of people think, oh, now it's a lot more racist. There's those, theories that are thrown out there. Not necessarily true.
Right.
But everyone has their opinion on that.
Right.
But you can't argue the fact that 80% of the people that were running Twitter are gone, and now all of a sudden it's running better than ever. And now the guy's going through our government books.
Yeah. I'm actually excited about that, to be honest with you. And I think that's what we're going to dive into too. But, I actually haven't used X since it became X. I was a fairly average Twitter user back when I was telling jokes on Twitter and getting semi-comedy famous over there. But I haven't used it in multiple years. But, I think there's X, and then a lot of people jumped ship to a different social media platform, which, whatever, people do that all the time. People blame Facebook, people blame X, and then they come back 2 months later like, oh, I missed it.
Now, if you've been watching the news lately, you might think that Elon Musk is a racist Nazi.
You could come to that conclusion.
Yeah, because he did make a hand gesture. My heart goes out to you. That absolutely looked like a Hitler high five.
See, now you're doing it, and someone's going to take that out of context without you actually saying words.
But what I did was I ran this through this AI to ask, is he really a Nazi? And it sounds like no. And this is coming from a left-leaning machine that wants to say yes, but it's saying no. No, Elon Musk is not a Nazi. The ones that claim that are exaggerating or misrepresenting. Where does it come from? The crackdown on X. There's a lot. Mostly, it came from him. Doing a high five at the inauguration or a salute.
Yeah.
Is there any evidence? No, there's no evidence that he advocates for Nazi or has those white supremacy beliefs. It's just misinformation.
Right.
The guy made he's a little autistic, and he made a silly hand gesture that was completely just. It was low hanging fruit to make fun of somebody.
Which rightfully so, though, right? Like if you said something like that, somebody would automatically call you out, like, "Whoa, you can't do that," right? Like that's just kind of how the world works. But a lot of this stuff, like Nick's saying, is taken out of context. Right. You see these blips of past presidents, current presidents. I'm not even mentioning names, but they'll take a tiny blip of an interview. Where he says something out of context, and they'll be like, well, this guy hates this because this is what he said right here in this 2 seconds. Right. But really, it might be an example of like, yes, I said this, but here's how we're fixing this problem that was a quote or something. It's misinformation is so high in this country.
I mean, it seems like it's 80% of what you see. Yeah. These little clips and like what Fox says versus MSNBC and all these things. It seems like they all have their own skewed agenda.
Yes, you are absolutely
right. And you just got to be careful what you're listening to. And don't be afraid to like listen to what you don't want to hear either. Like I listen to, I think it's very clear to most people that I've kind of over time became a little bit more right leaning, but I still view myself as very independent because I've criticized both sides a lot. But I'll still listen to little clips, and stuff from MSNBC and The Daily Show with Jon Stewart and CNN, and then also Fox News and all this. I want to hear it all. Yeah. And I want to draw my own conclusions.
Yeah.
But I also like to hear that when they report on something that happened and they show, like you said, a 2-second clip of an interview. And if it's intriguing to me, I might actually just go listen to that whole interview. And then I'm like, this isn't at all what they said it is. Happening. Yeah. This was completely taken out of context, like almost everything, always.
Right. And you do have to be careful with information. I know you like to kind of bounce around, which I think is admirable of you to be like, okay, let's do the research and find out the thing. But still, the research,
and I'm more curious than anything.
The research that we're giving is still curated from the top. Does that make sense? Like, I mean, like it's funneled down. I saw this one diagram one time that actually showed exactly how it works. There's a big tub in the middle, and it's like, this is your actual news, and then like the overflow is like, it falls out into these left and right containers. Like
nobody's
this
actually...
is the news right here, and this is what you're making it down here.
Right, just the driblets.
Yeah, the driblets and the little tidbits of information. People are hungry for that so they can attack a character.
Right. And for those that are listening, he was describing like a barrel that's like water's flowing off the top and you just get the little drips, but you don't actually get any of the meat.
Yeah.
Or the water.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right, so let's switch a little bit, and we'll come back to Elon Musk. But let's talk about the national debt, because this does have a huge impact on real estate investing and the country's future.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I asked ChatGPT, and you guys may think this is silly, but I think it's fun to actually ask a supercomputer that has analyzed everything.
Right, that knows the internet.
That is smarter than anyone that you can possibly talk to. And it's gotten much, much wiser over the last 12 months.
Yeah.
And ask questions like this. Well, if our government continues spending like this and it doesn't improve, what will ultimately happen if our budget stays on the same path for another 50 years?
Now, I'm going to stop you right there. Like, yes, we're asking the supercomputer this, and I want to just let everyone know again, like, these are conclusions that you can come to without a supercomputer.
Right.
Right.
But it helps if, like, I want non-bias.
Sure. Yeah.
I want, like, a as authentic of an answer as I can get.
Right. But if I were to ask, like, a seventh grader, like, hey, we spend $456 trillion a year. Our debt is $700 trillion a year. What's going to happen in 10 years? They can do that math.
They maybe can.
They maybe can, exactly. But like, it's nice having these numbers in front of us and having a calculated workflow of what could end up happening.
What I love about AI is you can take the super complex and boil it down to something real simple.
Yep.
You just got to ask the right questions. So, if we stayed on the same track, if we did not fix our budget, if we continue to overspend in the rate that we are, currently, right now, the U.S. debt is a little over $34 trillion. That can buy you the big house.
Get you Taco Bell not off the value menu.
Yes. The projection in 50 years could exceed $200 trillion if the trend continues.
Okay.
50 years. Now, I'm going to be alive in 50 years.
I hope I'm alive, yeah.
We'll be in our 80s.
Yeah.
Can you imagine a $200 trillion deficit?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, I guess so. Because 34 trillion seems insane.
It's already high. Like, what's the difference?
But there are some things that make this insane.
Yeah.
Right now, the U.S. borrows money to pay for its spending.
Yep.
That's something that you guys got to understand. The U.S. borrows money to pay for its spending.
Yep.
And if we keep running deficits like this, the interest payments on the debt will skyrocket.
Yes.
Because just like it did with me when I was overspending and I was spending $90,000 a month and only bringing in 30.
Yeah. If you have a bigger principal amount, your debt amount attached to the interest will be higher as well. So that definitely makes sense why it will scale.
Yeah. And it's not like every month, I was that much more behind. It was compounding because I had to borrow money to pay my bills constantly anywhere I can find it for almost a year. The country has been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, this is not a new thing.
But the budget was balanced at one point, not, just, when Clinton was in office, I think. And then again, at some point, somebody can correct me in the comments, but I definitely know that when Clinton was in office in the 90s, the budget was actually balanced.
Shout out to Bill Clinton.
Good job, Bill.
Turns out blowjobs actually help people manage things.
No shit, huh? Yeah.
Like, if that's all it takes, like, maybe all these presidents should be getting sexual favors. Like, hey man, just take a load off, literally.
Take a load off.
But so what the U.S. is doing, and Nick's saying this too. The U.S. is in debt, and what they do is they issue treasury bonds, right? So these treasury bonds have an interest rate attached to them, and they go out to foreign or domestic investors.
And foreigners are the most.
Foreign are the most, yes. Most of the money goes abroad.
Yeah.
And that is how, so they issue these treasuries, people buy these treasury bonds, and that gives them the money to continue running.
Yeah. Do you know we owe a little over $1 trillion to Japan?
Nice.
And knocking on the door of $1 trillion to China?
Yeah.
China.
It's China.
And many more. Okay, so if we continue down this path, here's what you got to keep in mind. Eventually, the government will have to print more money. Duh. Causing inflation.
Yep.
They have to cut spending somewhere, and or raise taxes. Investors could lose confidence in U.S. bonds, leading to higher borrowing costs.
Yes.
Interest rates will continue to rise. That's how this stuff works. Hyperinflation is also going to be inevitable. And unfortunately, AI says that the dollar will collapse, the US dollar.
Okay, so speaking of that, and you showed the slides before of like what a dollar is actually worth. Like I would say that it's already collapsed. The dollar's not worth a dollar.
But it's not at the point where countries like, you know, Germany in the 1920s and Venezuela as early as just in the 2010s went through this, where their dollar basically collapsed due to overprinting, excessive printing, and that's what we've been doing for quite a while, and that's why it costs $18 for a Reuben sandwich.
Yeah, and $20 for a carton of eggs. Now, can I go off script here a little bit and just kind of ask, like, okay, so you know, at this rate, we're printing more money, and you know, obviously, people have these wages and they have a lifestyle they want to keep, right? So you know, I don't see inflation ever stopping. To be like completely honest with you, like,
well, we have a fiat currency, so that's probably not. But we can slow it down.
We can slow it down, but like, you know, what happens to wages once this whole thing happens, and say the dollar is not worth anything anymore? Like, what happens to your normal middle class worker?
Well, I think all of a sudden they would be collecting, you know, $1 million a week, just like in Venezuela, where you know people just had, you know, dumps. They're just pouring, you know. Wheelbarrows of cash into fires.
Were they?
Something like that.
Okay, wow.
Anyway, eventually your currency becomes nothing. Have you seen the Iraqi dinar?
Yeah, you guys
have you
invested
seen mine?
heavily in the dinar.
You know, $10,000 bills, $25,000 bills.
Yeah.
It'll just become like that. Like you just have to just make the number higher so it has some sort of value. But the more and more you print, the more it's supply and demand. The more
How is your dinar doing?
Not great.
Okay.
Interesting how that works.
Yeah. You bought a foreign currency hoping that it would raise in value, and it didn't.
I took advice from my mom on finances.
But to be honest, like we heard about
that was 15 years.
This was 15 years ago, but it was an interesting play, right? Because we didn't know a lot about investing or how the world worked.
I can
back
buy
then.
cheap currency somewhere else,
and the plan is for that sounds like an investment, but we just didn't know enough about the infrastructure and how it actually worked, which is kind of what we're trying to tell you now.
Yeah. All right. So global. This is what ultimately will happen with that dollar collapsing. Global markets will stop using the dollar as the world's reserve currency. Currently, 60% of all global transactions are using the U.S. dollar.
Okay.
So this would mean higher costs for imports, collapsing wages, and a deep recession or depression would come.
Now,
No
so with the higher costs for imports, I do want to touch on tariffs real quick.
Sure.
Right? Because this sounds like something that could be happening right now.
Yep.
Right? Trump put on these tariffs on Canada, Russia, Mexico, everywhere, right? So now these foreign companies are not wanting to import goods into the U.S. Am I correct?
As far as I know, they've like immediately caved and worked out deals.
Oh,
so
that's good.
It's
Okay.
being used as a you know,
It's a negotiation
it's
tactic.
a negotiation tactic. But even if these tariffs are put in place, it's a way for the government's revenue to increase, which we do need.
Yes, that is something we need.
You know, and we can take it one way or another. We can take it in tariffs with people consuming items, and that's part of their taxes, or we can just raise the taxes on their income and where we take more out of their paychecks.
Right, and people don't like either of those options.
People don't like either. So what they should like is what Doge is doing, which is cutting unnecessary waste, fraud, and abuse. I think they even have an acronym for it.
So Doge is not the Doge currency coin, correct? Is this a different?
No,
there's
no.
a different department, right?
There's
Department
an actual
of,
Department of Government Efficiency.
and that's what Elon Musk runs, correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
So he's working as a consultant for that was appointed. Basically, Donald Trump told him, "Hey, go do this.
Yeah.
Bring your gang of children with their cool software and
Bring your
start
gang of
digging
children and your psychotic mind."
Yeah, and like use your AI tools to figure out where's the waste.
I may have messed up.
And they're going into these agencies' systems and finding insane stuff.
Yeah.
Like the Air Force, $1,280 for a regular cup that you would pour coffee into.
Wow.
For those kind of cups. The IRS spends $230,000 a month on Keurig K-cups, but everyone's working from home.
Got it.
So there's all this this waste and or fraud and or abuse going on, and there's so many more examples. It's insane.
Yeah. I actually haven't
And
dove into that. So.
it's exposing all this, and you know who's freaking out?
Who?
The Democrats and liberals and Warren Elizabeth. So is that Elizabeth Warren? Sorry,
I was like, your last name, first name.
they're screaming, Elon was never elected. Blah blah blah. Like, why are they causing such a fuss of this guy just exposing the truth? Like, here's this potential waste, fraud, and abuse. Take it, for what it is.
Information I found.
This is billions of dollars we could be saving if you want to cut some of this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think it's in the Americans' best interest to stop somebody that wants to try to help fix our budget, because nobody else is doing it.
Right.
They've tried. Reagan tried, it failed. I think. Gosh, what was the guy's name? The Al Gore, I think, was going to try something like this, and it didn't work out.
Yeah.
A lot of people have, tried in the past to actually cut wasteful spending.
Shout out to Al Gore.
Yeah. And he invented the internet.
Dude gets a lot of flack for inventing the internet, correct. No, this makes sense. So, with the Department of Government Efficiencies, he's basically going in and just going into these government agencies and trying to find unnecessary spendings or ways to improve. And what you bring up a very good point. Like, I'm remaining a middle of the road, not left, not right, but that sounds like a good plan.
And the people that are screaming for him to be put in jail right now, you got to wonder about their intentions.
Right.
Like, what don't they want him to find out?
Sure.
Like, what's the problem with sensible spending? It seems like, and when they do the polls out there, most Americans are excited about this because they're paying for all this nonsense.
Right. This is money that we pay.
You and I both pay taxes, don't we?
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Did you know some of that is going towards those K-cups?
Yep, I did.
And transgender studies in Zimbabwe?
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff. Like some things that maybe if we cut some of these things and help ourselves first, because we are going down a road of disaster, maybe eventually we can become stable again, and then we can go back out and do things. Do good things in the world.
Yeah.
But we're falling face first.
Right. This is the typical example too of you're on an airplane. The airplane starts crashing. The oxygen mask comes down.
Yeah.
You put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you start putting the oxygen mask on all the people around you. You help yourself first, and I think this is a very good idea before you start helping other people, and we're in desperate need of help right now.
Yeah, totally. So, it also predicts, AI, supercomputer here, that programs like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid are unstable.
They've been unstable
for
years.
They are a little unstable, but by 2035, just in 10 years, Social Security will start paying reduced benefits. Now, 10 years from now, do you think we'll need less money or more money?
We'll
probably need more money.
Yeah.
But based off our current projections, in just 10 years, they're going to have to start cutting benefits and reducing benefits to Social Security, which is, it's kind of the opposite of what you need in an inflatable,
right.
A fiat currency world.
Yeah.
We need those benefits to actually increase in 10 years, not decrease.
Yeah, absolutely. And you think about it, like if that follows the trends of inflation and the way the dollar actually acts, yeah, absolutely, we are going to need more money for Medicaid and Social Security and things of that nature. So
yeah. So underneath that, this is ChatGPT. This isn't me, but they put a little skull emoji here and said, if spending continues unchecked, these programs could collapse entirely or require massive tax increases to survive.
Which people don't like.
People don't like that. They like the idea of retiring someday and, spending their workforce lifetime buying in, paying into Social Security and Medicaid and all this stuff. If all of a sudden it's just not there because we've abused the budget,
right?
And it's just, you don't get it now,
right?
People might be upset. So it's like, why don't we fix that before it really does become an issue where we have to get rid of it entirely?
Right. You know what I'd like to see, like paying taxes. Like I'm fine paying into Social Security, Medicare, all these things, and I'm fine paying sales taxes on goods. And I'm honestly fine if the tax rate goes up a little bit. I'm not going to throw a fit about that. What I think would be really cool is so people could see where their money goes.
Yeah. If I have to pay more for hammers on Temu, I'm willing to do that to not get rid of Medicaid.
Yeah. So yeah, if this is going to save someone's life, I'll happily pay an
I think
extra 6
America
cents.
has enough stuff.
We do. We have a lot of stuff.
If we have to put in tariffs to help raise the revenue.
Are you buying
of the
hammers
US?
on Temu?
No, I'm just saying. I'm giving an
That's
example.
worse than Harbor Freight. yeah, I hear you though.
If you have to spend $10 on a hammer instead of $7.50, but it could solve the entire budget issue if we do this on a mass scale.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to do that?
Yes. Everybody
Sure.
works together. Sounds
Yeah.
like socialism.
You might even think, maybe I don't need that hammer.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't need 7 hammers.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to throw 3 in the landfill anyway.
Yeah. They're Temu hammers. They're going to break
Yeah.
pretty quick.
All right. So ultimately, massive tax hikes for everyone will have to happen. Right now, it's at 37%.
Yep.
People work 37% of the year just to give that portion to the government. And Doge is finding a ton of waste.
That's the top tax bracket, correct?
No, that's just for employees.
Okay.
So 37%, and this is not state, this is just federal. 37% is typically what most people will pay as employees.
Gotcha.
That are just, you are liable for this taxes. You made $200,000 this year.
Right.
37%. Sayonara. We're sending it to the government.
It depends on your tax bracket, I will say too, of course.
Sure.
So, yeah, this is a very general number here for 37, but that's going to be your typical, $100,000
That's
to
the top bracket.
$500,000. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
But possible future taxes would would go over 50%, just like in Europe.
Yep, I
Because they
believe it.
ran into this issue too. Corporate tax rates could double, which means that businesses would have to raise their prices, hire less, and, the economy would dwindle.
Yeah.
Now, this is the scary part. The military budget would weaken. So right now, the current U.S. spends more than the next 10 countries combined. So we spend almost $1 trillion, $800 billion,
We do.
on our defense. Now, could it use some auditing? Sure.
800 million on defense, and how many of that was Keurig K-Cups?
Oh, so yeah, the Air Force.
Yeah, the Air
they're
Force.
spending $1,280 per paper cup.
Wow.
I don't know exactly what office that happened in. It's probably not in general.
I want to buy.
It was probably like this instance where they found, a little bit of fraud or something like that. But
Right.
they bring it up because it's like, dude,
These things happen all over the place.
There's never been audited before.
Wow. Yeah.
Actually, the defense they've been trying to audit the defense, the DoD, but they failed every single audit,
Yeah.
and they just don't produce their documents according to what I've seen in the news.
Man, it would be so good to have all these companies in line. I have to pay my taxes. I have to pay my stuff. I think government agencies should be held to the same standards as individuals and businesses, to be personally honest with you.
But if we don't fix our spending habits where, we're not spending more than what we are bringing in every year, we will have to shrink the military budget. And that would weaken the U.S. influence globally, allowing countries like China and Russia to expand their power unchecked. Do you think China and Russia love America, or do you think they are competing against us?
I don't have an answer for that, to be honest with you. I'm being 100% clear.
Would you rather have us with military bases around the world, or China and or Russia?
I'd rather have everyone to have an equal military.
Okay. That's scary.
This is the Albert Einstein equation. You give everyone a nuke, everyone's going to be afraid to use their nuke.
Okay. You probably have a good point.
But you know what I mean, though? If everybody's at the same playing field and nobody's going to come and bully anybody anymore. But again, I don't know a lot about world economics and how that all actually works.
Yeah.
It's just a fun concept bringing into how Albert Einstein says, if you give everyone nukes, no one will use them.
Did you know Russia doesn't have a great track history of being a great,
Did
friendly
you know
war?
we don't either?
Yeah, but at least we have good stories of why we do it. And World War II, you got to admit, we were heroes. Would you rather Germany take over?
No, you're right. I'm just kidding. But
we helped rebuild those fuckers.
So
I mean, that's how good we
come
were.
and
We bombed the shit out
your
of them.
ass.
We said, stop being Nazis. We're going to take a couple of you good scientists.
Yeah.
And here's some money to rebuild your cities.
Yeah. You owe us. You're in our
Yeah.
pocket now.
And it worked.
Hypothetically, yes, it did work.
But did you know Russia was on Germany's side there for a little bit, and then Germany turned on them too?
Checks out. This is double heel turn, as they call it in wrestling.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't like the idea of Russia having more equal military bases around the world than us,
well,
because I think their intentions are just to take over. I'd rather be on the side that takes over
Sure.
peacefully, or at least pretends to be peacefully.
Again, this is all like stuff that you see in media, like, oh, Nick's seeing these things about, like, Russia could just very well be a peaceful country for the most part.
That's going to be a clip right there.
That's a clip. But does that make sense? Like, I think everything is kind of blown out of proportion for what each other country is doing, because we want to make everyone else seem like the bad guy so we can come in and, like you said, be the hero for World War II. They're doing bad things. Let's go kick their butt.
I just want Greenland.
That's it. That's peaceful. We can come to that agreement then. But no, like, but yes, do I want a strong military presence? Of course. I do not want to be the weakest link.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have different thoughts on that, so I apologize if I don't sound like
okay.
a nationalist or anything like that. I believe in my country, but
That's okay. Let's move on real quick because we only got like 10 minutes left.
Yeah.
The U.S. will lose its superpower status within the next 50 years, probably a lot sooner.
Yeah.
But this is what the supercomputer ChatGPT predicts with our current spending habits. The U.S. economy is the largest in the world, but if spending continues unchecked, the U.S. could fall behind China as the world's leading economy. The U.S. dollar could lose its global reserve status.
Yep.
The government could be forced to rely on foreign bailouts, like Greece and Argentina did.
Pretty much already there.
If the U.S. no longer leads the global economy, then we would have less influence around world events, weaker trade deals, and higher costs for everything. So what's the solution? Cut wasteful government spending. Reduce dependency on deficit spending. Reform Social Security and Medicare to make them more sustainable. This is ChatGPT saying we need to do this.
Right.
Just so you guys are clear. Encourage economic growth and private sector investments. Encourage it.
Yeah.
So meaning don't tax them more, tax them less to grow business.
Yeah.
To stir up the pot of economic growth.
Yeah.
And avoid excessive money printing.
Yeah.
If nothing changes, the U.S. will face an unavoidable economy within the next 50 years. And then I took that whole segment and I said, okay, if U.S. no longer leads the global economy, we'll have less influence over world events, weaker trade deals. And I said, if we don't fix our budget, approximately how long until this starts happening? That last segment there.
Ask the questions.
If we don't fix our budget, approximately how long will it take until this stuff starts happening? Here's its predictions, the supercomputer. And this is kind of scary. When it comes to the economic supremacy, China's going to surpass the U.S. as the world's largest economy by 2030. It's 2025. 2030 is just 5 years. That's a presidential term away.
Yeah.
5 years is very quick.
It is.
I will be in my early 40s.
Yep.
Okay. And then the debt to gross domestic product ratio, or GDP, the U.S. national debt is projected to exceed 100% of its GDP by 2029. That's just 4 years away, reaching levels unseen since World War II.
Crazy.
This is 4 years from now.
Yeah. This is that hockey stick growth, but it's in the wrong way, basically.
Exactly. Currency dominance. So the erosion of the U.S. dollar's reserve status. Let's see. It doesn't give an actual prediction date there, so I'm going to skip that.
Okay.
Anyway, conclusion. So without corrective measures, the U.S. could experience a significant reduction in the global influence and economy stability within the next 10 to 20 years. I was asking about within the next 50 years, but it thinks it's much closer.
Sure.
All right. So I said, well, knowing all this, how much do we currently spend annually, and what do we bring in? How much of this is for debt payments, and how much do we have to start cutting to go down the right path to remain the number one superpower country?
Yeah.
And this is what it basically says. Currently, we spend $6.75 trillion, and currently we take in $4.92 trillion. Results in a deficit of approximately $1.83 trillion. I know we said that at the beginning of the episode.
Yep.
And the interest payments are $882 billion. That's more than the Department of Defense, our military budget.
Is this annual?
Yep.
Yeah.
On the net interest payments for national debt. Necessary budget adjustments to remain. So it gave a really complex answer there. And I said, hey, can you explain this a little more simply that anyone can understand? And it said, sure, here we go. So right now, the U.S. has been borrowing money for years.
Mm-hmm. This is not new.
We know, or we owe $34 trillion. Just think of it as a credit card debt. And we have to pay interest on it.
Mm-hmm.
The interest payments on the debt as of 2024 was $882 billion, almost a trillion.
Yeah.
For the interest payments. This money is not going towards military, healthcare, education, roads. It's not going to foreign aid, nothing like that. It's just to pay interest on what we already owe. What needs to change? To get our financial house in order, the U.S. needs to reduce the annual deficit by at least, get this, $525 billion per year. That's actually not as much as I thought.
Yeah.
That's just to barely get us on the right track. That means that we either have to cut spending by $525 billion or raise taxes to bring in $525 billion more, or a mix of both.
Yeah.
Without fixing this, China is going to surpass us.
Sure.
Now, what happens if we do nothing? We already talked about that. What's the bottom line? Let me skip that. I said, okay, because it's just redundant answer.
Right.
Who is getting most of the interest? And it talks about foreign countries. 30 to 35% of that interest payments are going to Japan, China, the United Kingdom, Belgium, Luxembourg, and many more. But it's all foreign.
Yeah.
And then I didn't think that was that interesting, but it gets way deep into it. I said, okay, sorry if I missed it, but approximately how much do we need to cut and how much revenue do we need to bring in to get on the right path without harming or bringing much pain to the U.S. citizens? That was key. So it said, at a minimum, going back, cut or raise the revenue by $525 billion. But a better fix would be to cut the spending or raise the revenue by $1.83 trillion. That's a big difference.
Yeah.
But that's what ChatGPT recommends. This is the better fix. But ideally, it says, you got to just cut it by $2 trillion. Just round up.
You got to go higher than what the debt that we spend per year is.
So this is what the supercomputer says. Ideal fix. Start paying down debt. Cut. And this sounds like if you're Dave Ramsey advice.
Yeah.
You know, Dave Ramsey could be telling the country what to do here.
Snowball effect, you know?
Cut the spending or raise the revenue by at least $2 trillion a year.
Yeah.
This would reduce the national debt over time.
It would.
And I asked, okay, so, and then it says, what are the best moves to get there with the least amount of pain to U.S. citizens? Get this. To fix the budget without crashing the economy or hurting the average Americans, we need a mix of both smart spending cuts, economic growth, and tax reform. Cut government waste and unnecessary spending. That would be the least painful for citizens.
At the top of the list, right?
And that is what Doge is doing. That is what this criminal Elon Musk that everybody wants to kill right now is focused on doing.
Right.
And that is also what AI is saying. That's your best option, bro.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense because the other options, again, are like raise interest rates. And people, as soon as you start messing with people's dollar, they get very upset. But if you can,
but you're messing with the bureaucrats' dollars,
right?
That's all you're doing. You're messing with those guys that are wasting, abusing, and there's a little bit of fraud mixed in. And that's what's getting those guys riled up, and they're causing a big fuss in the streets of Washington D.C. saying we will not sleep until Elon is killed. because he is exposing the truth.
I think that's a misquote from anybody.
Oh, you better listen. They're basically saying that.
They didn't say that word, though.
They are
The K word will get
paraphrasing slightly, but that's what they want.
The K word will get you canceled, Nick.
They're saying he is unelected. Instead of actually saying he's got a point.
Yeah.
Or saying, well, hold on, what he's looking into, this is what's actually happening. They're not saying anything to do with what he's actually finding other than we don't like you.
Right.
Go back to South Africa. Stop doing what you're doing.
Right.
They're not saying, hey, what you are exposing is not true, or what you're exposing is inaccurate, or what you're exposing isn't going to help, or what you're exposing, blah, 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 on and on. They're not saying any of that other than, why do we have this unelected billionaire pretending to be the president?
Right.
That's their argument.
And I would agree, yes, that's their argument. And the things I've noticed, and it's not always this way, of course, but the things I've seen throughout my years of life is when people get riled up like this, and when people get defensive, it's typically because they have something to hide.
Yes, and I've experienced something similar. I keep getting sued by individuals that caused the problem.
Right. Did you get sued again?
Yes, again.
Oh, we'll talk about it after the show.
Yep, same people.
Okay.
Brand new lawsuits.
Nice.
Same issue. They won't stop.
Yeah. Yeah. When people know that they're wrong, they'll do anything in their power to protect their legacy, including like slandering, and including like making false claims in order to divert attention. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And one thing I wanted to bring up here, like obviously we had ChatGPT run this report for us, and we've kind of summarized a few of the things. What it's saying we should do is cut government spending. It's so easy on paper. Like you look at it, you're like, well, duh.
Yeah.
Well, duh, could cut government spending, but like the actual application of it, I think it's a little bit more intricate than even Elon Musk is figuring out at the moment, because he's just breaking the surface of it.
Yeah, and there's some good points that AI is about to point out about the good and bad of what's happening.
Yeah.
Now I asked, so it seems like having Elon continue Doge is a good thing? And this is how the left-leaning machine answers this question. Yes. If Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency, is actually reducing waste, cutting unnecessary spending, and making the government operating more like a well-run business, then it could be a good thing for the U.S. economy.
It does say, and
and it gets into the bad, but sorry, go ahead.
You asked a leading question with it, like, so it seems like it's doing a good thing, and it's going to kind of give you like the, well, yeah, sure, of course, and the key word here is if. It says yes, if. So if Doge is doing this,
yes.
If it's doing what it says it's going to do, it will be a good thing.
Sure.
And that's the if, right? Like, if it does this, if it goes into these businesses, and if it goes into these government agencies, and it finds anomalies and fixes them, yes, that will 100% be good.
And it summarizes on 4 different topics on why Doge could be a good thing. Now, let's just skip all those because I feel like we can just keep hitting them over the head. But here are some concerning things. Is Doge actually legal? Some argue that Elon Musk shouldn't have control over the U.S. spending decisions. If Doge starts blocking funds without congressional approval, this could lead to lawsuits or political chaos. True. They actually do need congressional approval. I think there's been instances where they are just trying to stop things without going to that step, but that sounds like Elon Musk.
Right.
He tends to skip important steps when it comes to regulatory things.
Yeah. Sounds like you.
Yeah. But I don't think you should massacre somebody over it.
Right.
Instead, just be like, hold on, bro. Can we take it to Congress?
Right. Yeah.
Instead of kill him.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's not the way politics works, though, by the way. Like, if anyone says anything, even about Trump, like, the first thing he says is like, bah! A lot of people get that.
They're control freaks.
Yes.
And that's why they are where they are.
Right. 100%. And I will agree with you.
And are there checks and balances needed, even though their intentions may be pure? Of course.
Right. But the whole thing, these people, they will use media outlets and they will use interviews to gain leverage on that other person. If I can get on national TV and say something bad about Elon Musk, great, that helps my case.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they use the media, and the whole thing is blown out of proportion, all this stuff. Just let the man cook.
Now, here are some more concerns. Will it be used for personal or political gain? Now, if Musk only cuts programs that he personally disagrees with while keeping subsidies that benefit his companies, like Tesla, SpaceX, Starlink, it could be seen as self-serving.
Those aren't government programs.
Well, he has government contracts.
Yeah.
Like SpaceX. Guess what? The government needs SpaceX to send astronauts to the space station, International Space Station, because they stopped doing those programs.
Right.
But they still have a International Space Station.
That makes sense.
That sometimes they need astronauts up there.
They need to check their
back.
MySpace up there. Yeah.
And SpaceX is doing these contracts way cheaper than NASA was able to. So it's actually helping.
Right.
But yes, he has government contracts.
Okay.
And people automatically assume it is corrupt because he's also getting paid by the government for a lot of these things.
Sure. Kind of a, whatever it's called, when conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest. Yeah. Is it a conflict of interest? Sure, it could be.
Could be, yeah.
But is this conflict big enough? Is it still better for the government to use his services than the alternatives? I mean, that's something you got to really consider.
Right.
Are there even alternatives right now?
And these are like the questions that come up, like what happens if he does this stuff? Who knows? But just you got to give him a chance, I think.
Yeah. And then it could lead to unintended consequences. If the cuts are too aggressive, they could hurt essential services like Social Security, Medicaid, and infrastructure.
Yeah.
And a balanced approach is needed. Now, here's something that he had said multiple times before he ever got into Doge. He said, we need massive, aggressive cuts. And if we make a mistake, we can easily just put it back.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's his opinion. And I think a lot of people miss that. If they cut something that they actually really need, he agreed, let's just put it back then.
Yeah.
See if we can work without it. And if we can't, we'll just put it right back.
Right.
There's no harm. I mean, there's going to be a little harm.
Yeah, and then he also doesn't have to cut out programs completely. He can,
Yeah.
reduce funding on some, and like you said, just run through it with a fine-tooth comb and with his AI.
And he does this with his companies, and that's how they're so damn efficient, because he will cut too much, and then he'll have to put things back.
That's how you know.
Yeah.
That's definitely how you figure it out.
A lot of people don't like that, but I think my opinion, I think our country just needs some massive reform, because I'd like to see my kids live a very comfortable, fun future.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. And again, with these programs being cut, like if it increases or reduces government spending, which reduces our taxable income eventually, obviously it's going to hopefully start going to pay back that national debt first. Because once we get that under control and we become a self-sufficient nation, I think we're going to be in a pretty good position. But we have to get to that point first.
Let's get there.
Let's get there.
Let's do it. Actually, we're going to just keep doing this podcast and investing in real estate here in North Idaho. Hopefully other people can hopefully other people can fix the government problems.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to be your guy.
Yeah. We're going to be the guy to bring you the information about what other people are doing, though. That's for sure.
And we sure can gossip.
We sure can gossip.
Anyway, let us know what you guys think.
Yeah.
And you want to say anything before we take off?
Yeah, as always, if you enjoyed the episode, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Check out our YouTube at The Investor Shed Podcast or Investor Shed Podcast. Just YouTube Investor Shed Podcast. It will come up. And then you get to see our handsome faces online, so that'll be nice. If you have any questions or if you want to be a guest in the future, you got a cool story to share, reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Oh, and since Elon Musk was our guest today, if we gave Elon Musk $30 million, what do you think he would do with it?
I think that money is such a drop in the bucket. He's like,
what is this?
buy back some of my Tesla stock?
Just kidding. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
It was fun. See ya.
Thank you so much for checking out the Investor Shed podcast. If you enjoyed your time, make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Follow along on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at The Investor Shed for shorts and promos about each episode. Do you want to be a guest or know someone who has great real estate investing advice and stories? Reach out to us at theinvestorshed@gmail.com.